Hello, everyone. Hope everyone had a great week. Hope everyone's having a good Friday morning. My name is Jim Wendler. I'm the author and creator of 531, and we will be answering questions on the chat. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put them on there. We usually go for about an hour, or unless there's no questions, then we won't do an hour. So let's see. This week, awesome week of training for the London football team. Tremendous week. We had some of our best training days, which is good because the prior week I thought we faltered a little bit, and a lot of that is on me if I'm going to be completely honest. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. And I shall put on my glasses here. And we only have two things here so far. So, all right, here we go. Matt Dedinger asks, when doing only Walrus training 2 to 4 times a week, there's no barbell at all, do you suggest everyone should do Walrus full body? In general, is all Walrus training always full body or upper body, lower too? Please don't answer. It depends. Generally, always full body. And his next question is, how many exercises does or should a standard Walrus workout have? Is it always just 3 exercises, push, pull, and legs? Or can there be several categories, several per category, for example, 2 for legs? Generally speaking, it's usually 2 to, I guess, 4 exercises. So, for example, you could, again, this is just an example, you could do push-ups, some kind of pull-up or chin-up, squats, and ab wheel, for example. There's a lot of, obviously, variations in there, but I would generally recommend 2 to 4. I'm sure you could probably do up to 5 or 6, but I haven't done that. So, but yeah. So usually always full body, and usually anywhere between 2 to 4 total movements. There you go. Hope that answers your question. And I got to tell everyone right off the bat, I'm a little dizzy right now. I trained earlier today, and I kind of kicked my ass a little bit. So my legs are a little gummy. I pushed the Prowler yesterday for a Prowler marathon, which is about a half mile around my block here. And I did that yesterday, and I did some other stuff today, and my legs are feeling like absolute crap in a good way. So, all right, here we go. Burn Strating asks, what age did you start training your boys? Calisthenics and plyos, not necessarily adding external resistance. I started training James very early on. I mean, he was probably 3 years old or something, and I've mentioned this before. Every day he had to do some kind of physical training, and I think when we started it was like, 2 or 3 squats and like 1 push-up and like 1 sit-up or something like that. And the purpose of doing that was to create a habit. Obviously, he's not getting a ton out of doing, 2 to 3 squats, a push-up, some sit-ups, and maybe a couple jumps or something like that. But the reason why we started early is to create a habit so that when he got older, it wasn't like pulling teeth. It was just part of growing up. It was part of becoming, a human being, just like we do reading every day, and reading's just what we do. So it's the same idea. I'm sure most of you guys read every day. So we started with that, and then it got a little more intensive. I don't know how old he was. Maybe 9 or something like that. And but again, it wasn't crazy, and it's still not crazy. I mean, he trains almost every single day. He does something. Again, we're trying to build habits. Most workouts probably last no more than 20 minutes. So, and I don't load him very heavy at all. It's incredibly light. I am a huge fan, and I know, I don't know, people don't quite understand this, but I'm a huge fan of building a general fitness base for my kids, not just my children, but the athletes I work with. I'm a big fan of raising their what I call GPP, and that's what we try to do. So there you go. You can start early as long as you don't. You have to understand when your kid's 9 or 10 years old or however old, he's not a 20-year-old NFL athlete. You don't have to train him like that. Right? A little bit goes a long way. John DeWolf asks, if you were to set an RPE or rate of perceived effort for jokers, roughly what would you set it at? Maybe 7 or 8, leaving 3 or 2 reps in the tank? Well, I don't know. I don't really know how to judge that. I'd say probably around there. Man, you have to understand, John, that a lot of that has to do with the individual lifter. And the more fast twitch you are, a barbell might look like the bar just screams off your chest or off your back or whatever, off the ground. And it might look like you can do 5 when in reality that was probably your max. And a lot of times, for example, I'll give you an example. If I had bench pressed like 500, I could do obviously 500 for a single. I could only do 475 for a single. I might be able to do 455 for 2. So the more fast twitch you are, there's not a lot. It's not the same as for every other person. So, but yeah, I would probably say 2 or 3 or something. It just gets a little skewed when you get a little stronger. So I always base everything, at least when I work with the kids, it's got to look sharp. It's got to look awesome. And when that happens, good things tend to happen. In fact, when I work with someone individually, if I have a kid that I work with, boy, the lighting here really sucks today. When I work with someone, let me see if I can change this. See if that helps at all. Oh, there we go. All right. So here's the thing. When I work with someone individually, so I don't have a big group of 50, for example. If I just have one kid, we have a general plan for the workout. And then as he's training, if his bar speed looks awesome, we can manipulate the bar weight. If his bar speed and whatever we're doing, if I know what that bar is supposed to look like, and if it doesn't look good, we just lower the weight. I'm not tied to just doing exactly what he was supposed to do, what I had planned. So that's, if you get good enough as a coach, you can start manipulating the training as is, and that's pretty much what any good trainer would do, or any good coach in an individual setting. You're able to manipulate data based on the readiness and the preparedness for that day. It makes a giant difference. So some days you can add some weight, other days you got to take some off. All right. So as a lifter, if you can figure that out, good things can happen. All right. Richard, I can't pronounce your last name, Richard, so I apologize. He says he's reading Forever 5-1. Can you explain the leader anchor a little more? I'm having trouble grasping the concept just reading it. Basically, it comes down to this. A leader template is something that has a little more higher volume, a little less intensity. An anchor template has a little less volume, a little higher intensity. And intensity just basically means percentage of your 1 rep max. So more reps on one, lighter weight, heavier weight, and lower total reps or total amount of work done. Very simple. It's been done forever, but it's just an easy way to block some of your training. And the way that we do it is we never lose abilities when we do that. We just kind of alter the recipe, so to speak. So I never want to take out the hypertrophy work, especially with athletes, young athletes, and young lifters. You never want to take the hypertrophy out. You just switch how you do it. All right. And if anyone is familiar with concurrent, or what used to be known as conjugate training, the real idea behind conjugate or concurrent training is to raise multiple abilities at once. So you don't have like a hypertrophy phase, and that's just dedicated to building muscle. You don't just have a strength phase. You don't have a conditioning phase, all this stuff. It's nonsense for a younger lifter or a younger athlete because they're so far behind the ball that you can raise all abilities at once. All right. So I see this all the time. They have, a young high school kid asks for a football training program, for example, and they say, well, the first 6 weeks is hypertrophy, then you go into power, then you go into strength. man, if you're a 5'8", 150-pound kid, you can't you can't just expect 6 weeks of hypertrophy work to do any kind of work for you. It's got to be about 4 years. 4 years where you're trying to raise your muscle mass, your strength, your power, all that stuff. And it can be done because they're not operating at a high level. Now, once you're up, if you're a javelin thrower in the Olympics and stuff, yes, you can block off your training, but that's not the reality for young lifters or young athletes. There you go. All right. Jorge Silva says, greetings from Portugal. 4 times a week with one main lift and using FSL plus Walrus circuit. Okay, and then jump rope. Warm up. Okay, so he's asking if he lifts 4 days a week with one main lift a day and then does a body weight kind of circuit, a Walrus style circuit, and then jump rope. What are my thoughts? It's fine. That's a good training program. But as I've told everyone, I mentioned this on the forum, I think people need to get the hell out of the world that you can just do a forever template. And I see that a lot of times. They want a template they can just do forever. And it doesn't work like that, guys. You're going to have different stressors. You're going to get stronger. You're going to get better at certain stuff. Maybe you're going to get a little worse. So just stick with that. Jorge, stick with what you got. Stick with it for 6 weeks. And then say, hey, man, I need to go. Maybe this is not working, or I need to alter this. But that training's fine, but it's not fine for a long period of time. It doesn't work like that. And that's why you base all your training on principles. And that way you can manipulate the smaller variables in there and maintain the integrity of training. All right. So, but what you're doing looks good for you. If you can recover from that, and you can feel pretty good. Okay. Caleb LeBlanc says, I'm struggling to go from 195 pounds, and I'd like to be about 215 or 220. I'm 5'11". Do you think this could be I'm not eating enough? Yeah, unless there's some kind of massive health problem that you have, thyroid problem, you're not sleeping very well or something like that. It's generally eating. The problem is you're at 195 right now, and you want to be 215 or 220, how about you get to 200 pounds first? So you have to eat enough food, and you only eat enough to be 195 pounds. So you probably need to up the calories somehow and do it gradually. The problem is you want to be 220, and that's 25-pound gain, when right now you should just work on getting up to 200 and maintaining that 200 and making that your set body weight point. So it's just like if you want to bench 300 pounds, guys, and your current bench is 200 pounds, get to 205 first. You got to take all the necessary steps on the road. You're not going to go from 200 to 300 in 2 weeks. It doesn't work like that. All right. Caleb then asks, have you ever been a fan of comic books / manga? I don't know what manga is, but I've read some comic books, but I've never been a fan. I don't know. I just was never in that world. When I was growing up, it was pretty much training, sports, music was huge for me. And I love to read. So, but yeah, there's nothing wrong. I know the comic book industry is massive, and I'm sure there's a million things out there, but that's just not something I was terribly interested in. Let's see here. Jorge Silva, now he's got another training question. Says, hey, Jim, when doing second set last, SSL, with boring but strong, is doing a weight vest walk for 1 hour every morning enough conditioning? So 7 times a week, I will do a 1 hour weight vest walk, and 4 times a week do strength training. Well, I don't know, Jorge, if it's enough for you. If you feel like you're recovering and you're getting what you need out of that walking, and your training is going well, then yeah, sure, it's probably pretty good. But if you're horribly out of shape and your bar speed goes down and your strength gets down, and you start having trouble sleeping and your joints ache and all that stuff, then it's probably not right for you. So it's hard for me. I don't know why you're doing second set last with boring but strong. That's not a very smart thing, but what have you. If that's what you want to do, it's your training, and if it works for you, that's fine. All right, Tim says, hey, Jim, I thought of something that may be fun and smart to do. You might disagree, though. I know you talk about repeating cycles without adding weight. Yep, until you're ready to move on, which I think is great, by the way. What do you think about doing a cycle of, say, Perverter, and then doing the next cycle of, let's say, Leviathan to make it interesting? I thought it looked like fun. What do you think? Well, to be honest, I'd have to look at those templates and look. Yeah, that's fine. If that gets you in the weight room and you believe in it and you feel like you can recover from it, yeah, go ahead and give it a rip. You're not going to know unless you try, and you might learn something. You might learn what to do. You might learn, more importantly, what not to do sometimes. So if you want to give it a shot, do it. Just be consistent and make sure the training max isn't horrible, and you'll be good to go. Boy, I wish people would understand that. Guys, if you understood how low our training maxes are for the athletes I work with and for the guys I've worked with and myself, you don't need to push the envelope all the time with the weight. You have to push how you do. Make sure that every lift is awesome. Every rep is awesome. And I see way too many people doing sets and reps that are just horrible. So use the correct weight and do that consistently, and magically you'll get better. All right. Take the long-term approach. It always works. And it works quicker too. All right, here we go. Steven says, hey, Jim, the last few months I have been feeling really beat up from my training. Barbell work using the big compound lifts. I'll be 51 in July and training since 16. I was thinking about doing body weight only training, maybe some walrus work until I feel like getting back into the barbell. Is this a good plan, or would you suggest something else? Well, listen, I don't know if that's what you want to do. Like if that's going to get you in the weight room and get you doing some physical stuff or whatever, your heart's just in a different place right now, then go ahead and get it. The issue, there's not the good thing about the barbell, and the issue I have with that is, you may love to do the squat, bench, deadlift, press, and all that other stuff with the barbell. So a simple way of doing that would be, see how many days a week you're training right now. And let's say you're lifting 3 days a week, okay? Take that down to 2 days a week that you're doing barbell lifts. Make sure the training maxes are always awesome. Repeat the same training max for like 5 cycles. Just repeat it. And just make sure all your reps are awesome. And then additional 1 or 2 days a week, you can do some body weight work. And just see how you feel. A lot of the times with the older lifter, when they're feeling beat up, a lot of the times is they're chasing numbers and they're chasing old ghosts, I call it. Use the appropriate weight for you that allows your body to recover. So if you're feeling beat up, the weight that you're using is not appropriate for you. It could also mean the volume, but for the most part, I've seen you're using too heavy of a weight. So maybe back down the training max. If you're doing 3 or 4 days a week of the barbell, try it 2 days a week, and then you can add in some body weight stuff or some kind of additional assistance on 2 other days and just see how you feel. The other thing, obviously, is make sure you try to keep your general physical preparedness up, and this would mean walking. The body weight work would help that quite a bit. And obviously make sure that you're recovering as far as obviously sleep and eating and just feeling good. One of the things I did a long time ago is I did an experiment. This was when I was training in my garage, and there was always a point in time during a workout where I'd feel really run down. And I decided one day I was going to do a couple cycles of my training. And I said to myself, no matter where I am in my training on that day, if I'm feeling run down, I'm going to stop lifting. All right. So I will stop the workout. I always know what that feeling was. Now, granted, I had been lifting for a long time. I can kind of get away with this. Not every young lifter should do this, but just understand where I'm going with this. So sometimes, obviously, most of the time I would finish the workout. that whatever I had planned for the day, even if I had to make some changes, I would finish the workout. A lot of times I got halfway through my first assistance exercise and I'm like, dude, I don't feel good. I'm feeling totally run down. And I would just literally stop, clean up the weight room and go back in. The difference in how I felt body-wise was insane. Okay. Now I don't recommend doing this for a younger lifter, a younger athlete and stuff like that, because you need to build up your work capacity and stuff like that. But for an older lifter, understand your body is giving you messages. Make sure you listen to those. Now, some of the times you got to break through. I get it. You got to push your body through, but sometimes your body's giving you all these messages and you still have the thought, the thought procedure and the work ethic of a young man. And a lot of times it will just drive your dick right in the dirt. So be smart about that. All right. Jesse says, do you have a favorite template from Forever that's not boring but big to get someone noticeably bigger, stronger, and faster? Okay. I'm 35 years old and 250 pounds. If I was 35, bigger, faster, and stronger, I would probably do something like one main lift a day, 3 to 4 days a week. I would make sure every rep was so balls dead on accurate and awesome that it would blow anyone's mind who saw me train. I'd make sure my training max was appropriate, meaning that bad day or good day, I was going to have awesome lifts. And I would always make sure my assistance was full body. So I would do something for the upper body push, upper body pull, something for the lower body or abs. Most of the time I would probably do abs. Okay. And then I'd make sure I box jump or do some kind of jumps, whatever jump was appropriate for your body. And then I'll do that 3 days a week. And then the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I would do, one day would probably be some kind of prowler or hill sprint or something like that. Another day would be a weight vest, long weight vest walk, whatever that would mean for you. And another day might be some kind of, for me, I would do bike sprints, 20 bike sprints or something like that on the Airdyne. So that's what I would probably recommend. So, all righty. Guys, the issue that a lot of people have is with that stuff is they always think more is better, more. When the reality is better is always better. I would make sure my diet was dead on balls for whatever that would mean for you. But for me, I'd make sure that would be another big thing. And the other thing is I would never worry about the training weight. I would only worry about the rep quality and rep integrity, and I'd let the chips fall where they may. I would let that fucking consistency build up, that no matter what happens, I was going to get better. Instead of pissing and moaning about my training max or my weight was a little bit bad here. Some days you're going to have bad workouts. It's the way it goes. All right. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. And if you have a correct training max with that, magically it goes away. So there you go. All right. Good morning, Jim. I just recently started helping coach the local high school football team. I attended a few of the weightlifting sessions and have seen a lot of ego lifting. How do you convince the kids that lifting too heavy with bad form will not help them? I don't know. Listen, that's kind of on the head coach a little bit. One of the things, and this is not me pushing the problem on the head coach, but training is such a massive part of our football team that it's as important as the practices. Okay. I just want to make sure everyone understands that. Just like a lot of other places, super important. So the head coach has instilled an idea that, Coach Wendler, he's the coach. What he says, that's what you do. There's no way around that. None. If your paper says this, that's what you do. If he asks you to do this, that's what you do. And for the most part, the kids do it correctly. Every once in a while, I have to get on a kid for doing the wrong weight. And I have called kids out hard on it. So it's not so much that I have to convince them. The kids have to respect you enough and have that kind of built into the program so that says, hey, when the coach asks you to do something, no matter what it is, you do it correctly, you do it with the greatest effort, and you do it consistently. So I think, if you're going to be in charge of that, you got to be in charge of that. And, the one thing that we really, I always tell coaches with their young athletes is, especially in a big group setting, is you need 1 or 2 good classes that say, you know what, I'm all in. And when those kids have success, because they inevitably will if you do things correctly, then everyone will buy in. And so I was very lucky to have a very good class, but I also have a head coach that instills that kind of discipline and consistency with the kids. So they don't get to do whatever they want. They do everything we do is on a timer. Everything we do is very militant. And that's just built into the program. That's how we run our practices. And, I've always said we're not the best team in the world, but we overachieve. And we do so not because we run a fancy offense or we run trick plays or we have the greatest athletes. We win consistently because we do all the little things consistently with great effort and with great discipline. So, Josh, you need to take charge of that weight room. You need to let them know that you're in charge, and that head coach, whoever the head coach is, needs to sit those kids down and say that, your expectations are you do what is asked. Okay. So listen, I get that. I get that from coaches all the time. How do you get kids believing? And a lot of that is on that head coach. The head coach has to back you. And that's part of building a winning program, is everyone on the same page and the kids following while you lead. All right. Justin says, hey, Jim, would you ever consider making 531 Forever an ebook? I own it, but I think it would be nice to have it an on-the-go reference. Maybe. We've never discussed that, my wife and I, other than when we first published the book. So I don't think so. I'll be honest, but, we might make it into a Kindle later. So, but no, not something I have really thought too much about. So. Caleb LeBlanc, he responds, he was the young man who wanted to go from 195 to 220 or 215 in body weight. He says, thanks, Jim. It seems like common sense, but I never gave any thought to what you said about getting to 200 pounds. I appreciate that. Listen, you got to get to 200 first, and then you have to learn how to maintain that and let that be your fighting weight. When my oldest son went to college, we sat down, and he's really into training and stuff like that. And I told him, listen, we need to set some fighting weight goals for you, body weight, so that if you get a little too low, you need to increase your eating, or if you get a little too high and you feel like you're getting fat, we need to decrease your eating and change, some things. So I would recommend trying to maintain what I call a fighting weight. And this is what I try to do personally. I don't do it very well, if I'm going to be honest, but I try to maintain a fighting weight. That's something I feel comfortable with. And then you need to learn how to maintain that weight, whether it be higher or lower, and then just keep chipping away, whether it's gaining muscle or losing body fat. So Burn Strading says, do you use weighted carries at all for your athletes? I would if we had the room, but we do not, and we don't have the money. So, and to take all the trap bars out of the weight room, which is on the second floor, and bring it all the way down on the field along with all the weights would be about 30 minutes. And that is a giant waste of time. We are a lot of things at London, and one of the things we pride ourselves on is efficiency. What we do, so that just doesn't work into our plans. The kids got stuff to do. I got stuff to do. So what we did, there's nothing wrong. I would use them if we had, a giant field house and everything would be able to be set up and not have to take, 30 minutes, 35 minutes to get everything up and down and all that other stuff. So what we kind of did is we trap bar a little differently than I think a lot of people do. You see a lot of people trap bar just standing up and coming down. What we do is when we stand up, every single rep has to be held for 1,002 and then down. 1,002 on the way up, and we're holding. And every single week after on your final set, after you get whatever reps you're supposed to get, all the kids hold those weights, and they hold it for as long as they can. It doesn't replicate a weighted carry exactly, but I think that builds a tremendous amount of grip strength, a tremendous amount of fight, and I think it also does a terrific job strengthening the upper back. So we get around it a little bit, but you have to understand that, there's a lot of things I'd like to put into a training program. In the big group setting, with a small area and a limited budget, you just can't do it all. So you got to work around everything. All right. David says, "Hey, Jim, I follow you from Malaga, Spain, southern Spain. I wanted to ask you about direct training of calves. Would you include it in the single leg part, and how often? Thank you." Listen, I have trained calves about one time in my life. I never really needed to, and I think a lot of it has to do with just the tremendous amount of running and jumping and hills that I did as a young athlete. And so I never really had to do it. I was blessed with genetically strong, big calves. My dad's calves are absolutely ridiculous. So if you wanted to do it, I don't know. You would probably have to consult someone else probably once or twice a week. But yeah, that's way out of my wheelhouse. I really don't know. And I apologize, David. But one thing I've learned since I started doing this, when you're very young in the training world, you want to have all the answers. And then at a certain point in your life, you realize you don't have all the answers, and it's okay to say you don't know. For example, calves. I don't really know a lot about training my calves, and I'm not going to pretend to. Same thing with physical therapy for injuries. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physical therapist. So when one of our kids one of the athletes at London gets hurt, that's the job of our athletic trainer to get them back and rehabbing them. And then once they are done and get the okay, then they come back to me. So that is one of the good things we talk about, the head coach supporting the strength training program. I also think it's my job to support the athletic trainer. Erica is her name. She's done a wonderful job. I don't tell the kids what to do, and she doesn't tell me what to do. And we all know our role, and I think it's super important that you respect that role. So anyway, that's a little off topic there. Okay, Big Wad says, "Morning, coach. Let's say my first set last weight is 130 for a given lift, but to make the plate math easier, I just do 135. Would I get kicked out of the London weight room for doing this? You would be criticized big time." Yes, because you let listen, I know I'm going to get some shit about this, but it's a slippery slope. When I ask you to do 130 pounds, you should do 130 pounds. And I'm not going to obviously catch all of that. There's tons of kids in there. I don't know everyone's set all the time. But to me, that is a discipline issue, and that is a thing that you should be doing. And if it says to do this, you should be doing it. That personally would drive me nuts. I would never, if I was training someone personally, that would eke me, because that is an example of you not doing the correct thing. And as you do one thing is how you do everything. So Ryan Whitley says, "What's your favorite guitar brand or model?" Man, I don't really have one. I'm not good enough to be picky. Like people argue about pickups and all that stuff, and I'm not good enough to do that, because the pickups aren't the issue with the guitar for me, just like the guitar model isn't the issue. It's usually user error. So I did have a guitar made. I saved up, oh my God, a couple years for a kind of a custom made guitar. It's a Monson guitar. And one of the reasons I got that was one of my favorite guitarists And one of my favorite bands uses those, the band Indian. And I always figure if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. So, but, you know, the one thing that you have to understand, a lot of times, you know, how do I put this? Some of the best songs are written on the most basic guitars and basic amps. And I think that's what matters a little more. So, and I know different brands and different models feel different. And, you know, as you get older and more experienced, you know what you like and don't like. Like, I'm not a big fan of Strats. I had one for a while. But if I was going to put one, you know, I just love like a Gibson SG. I like the way the neck feels. But listen, when I play on a Strat, the reason why it doesn't sound good is because I suck, not the Strat. So, all right. Stephen C says, thanks for the tip. Have a great. All right. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate it. Thank you for thanking me. Christopher Reynolds, Christopher with a K. What are your thoughts on farmer carries as a conditioning workout after a lower body day, and how would you program it while still pushing prowler on upper body days? Well, the only problem I have with farmer carries as a conditioning workout is a lot of times people don't have good technique when they stand in place rather than when they walk with a weight. And I not just walk with a weight, but walk in a massively fatigued setting. So I would program it just by weight, and I program it by distance. So I don't, you know, it depends on how conditioned you are and what, but I would generally don't use when I do carries, I don't really use it as a conditioning tool. I use it as a movement, a strength movement, so to speak. I'm not a big fan of walking with heavy weight in a massively fatigued setting. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, for example, when we did it out here, we go for a half mile. And I don't know if I don't know. I assume it's kind of far. So I break it down into like a quarter mile or half mile. And then you can wave your weights however you see fit. But whatever you choose to do, make sure you start very light with the farmer's carries, because again, if you can't deadlift or trap bar with great form, you know, with sub-max weights, then don't expect to be able to walk with it in a massively fatigued state. It just seems really dumb to me. So it'd be like taking a 13-year-old kid who doesn't know how to bench press very well and then putting a bamboo bar with kettlebells hanging from bands, and you know they're doing this. Well, this is what their bench press looks like already. So you need to build that general strength base where everything is solid: your upper back, your grip, your abs and low back, and make sure that is solid before you really start doing that stuff. And listen, maybe I'm old-fashioned, maybe I play things a little safely, but I work with so many young and unexperienced athletes that I see the reality of where kids are today with their fitness and their general physical preparedness. And that doesn't mean everyone's like that, but it's not very high. So make sure you build that base before you do something that's going to get you hurt. When is the best time to add plyometrics in 5-3-1, before the main lift or between warm-up sets? Well, I don't know if true plyometrics is going to be, that would depend on what your warm-up is like. And I think if I were you, if you feel like you're ready for the plyometrics before your main lift, I would go ahead and do it. If you need extra warm-ups to get your body ready, this is not box jumps. This is true plyometrics. Your body's got to be ready for that. It's very intense. So one of the things that we do with the young athletes I work with is we always start our jumping with just regular jumps, standing long jumps, landing strong, box jumps, stuff like that. And if the kids look good, then we will go into some plyometrics. If not, we'll just back off. So generally speaking, you can do it before the main lift, or you can do it between some of your warm-up sets. And I don't think there's a massive difference between that. Just understand that your body's got to be ready for that, because it's incredibly intense. And also remember that plyometrics is not conditioning. I ram that in the kids' head all the time. Take a break. It's not, 5,000 box jumps or anything like that. And again, we talk about young athletes and their low level of GPP, and I couldn't think of a dumber thing to do than to ask them to do plyometrics in a massively fatigued and state and turn it into conditioning. It's idiotic. So there's a reason why you do the plyometrics, and it's not for conditioning. Oh, that drives me bananas. All right. Big Wad says, hey, I really pushed my Joker sets this week. Spurred on by Death's, that's the band Death, Sound of Perseverance album. Were you able to see Death in concert as a young man before Chuck's passed from cancer? He is referring to Chuck Schuldiner. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He was the lead guy, singer, and guitarist from Death. I never saw Death in concert, so unfortunately. But at the time, it had been very hard for me to see him. When I was very young, I didn't have any money, and you'd have to go into the city of Chicago to go see a lot of that stuff, and no way my parents were going to let 16-year-old Jim drive into Chicago by himself. God, horrible. So, but I'll be honest. Like I had Scream Bloody Gore, and I had Leprosy on tape when it came out. Not a huge. I mean, I like Death, but they weren't like my favorite band by far. And that's not saying they were bad or good. If you love them, that's awesome. But it just didn't really. I like my death metal to sound like horrible. I just want it to sound dirty and horrid. All right. Jesse Driscoll writes, hey, thank you for the awesome answer. I forgot to mention, recently had to switch to the safety squat bar due to a shoulder injury. Thoughts on that bar for squat day? And that bar is humbling. Yes, I love the safety squat bar. I think it's one of the most idiotic, in an awesome way, squat bars to use. There is technique involved, but it's just kind of you squat down, hold that position, and just muscle it up. I think it does a tremendous job of obviously strengthening your legs. It's very forgiving, obviously, on your shoulders, and does a good job of just the bar is always trying to tip you forward, and you really got to hold those positions. I'm a huge fan of it. So there's nothing wrong with having to go from a straight bar to a safety squat bar. In fact, your shoulders will probably thank you for it. So, all right. What do we got here? It's 10:42. We got some time. Okay, Chloe asks, hey, Jim, I'm probably majoring in the minors, but I was wondering if replacing the volume squat and bench in full body with pause versions would be appropriate for a prospective power lifter. Yeah, that's fine. That would be fine. For perspective, okay, I see what you're asking here. Yeah, but the only thing is when you're doing the pause versions, the total volume has to come down. So, for example, if you're doing a set of 10 regular squats, I would change that between maybe 3 and 6 reps on the paused version with the same weight. All right. The other thing is when you're pausing, you have to make sure that your abs and low back and everything else remains super tense, and you learn how to fire out of the hole where things aren't coming up separately. It's got to come up as one unit. So make sure that as long as that whatever weight you are doing is appropriate so that your technique when doing that is good. And the other thing is when you're doing any pause versions, if let's say, for example, you're going to do 5 reps at whatever weight, and that second or third rep is really not good. If you don't have confidence that you can maintain that technical form and maintain that pause and everything like that, rack the bar and come back and fight on another set, okay? So super important to do. Just because it says 5 reps doesn't mean that you have to do 5 reps if your technique, form, and all that other stuff starts going out the window. I always tell the kids, listen, on this final set, we're going to try for X reps, but listen, If something goes to shit, you gotta rein it in. You gotta rack the bar. You have to drop the bar if you're deadlifting, or have your spotter take it. If you're bench pressing, and live to fight another day. All right. I am not interested in watching kids do crappy reps. I am not interested in seeing people backs rounding and butts flying off the bench and squats 10 feet high with the feet way out. It's just not. I'd rather have a kid do 5 perfectly awesome reps than 10 crappy reps. All right. And that, I think more people should embrace that. That doesn't mean you don't work hard. That doesn't mean your form is going to be perfect every time. But once your technique and form gets to a point where it's just bad, like it's embarrassing, you got to rack the bar before it gets to that. All right. And live to fight another day. And Chloe goes on and says, for the record, Chuck Schuldiner was a genius, and Spiritual Healing is a fantastic album. All right, there you go. I'm not saying he wasn't a genius. The guy was out of this world. And in fact, man, what did I see the other day? I listened to like some Mantis. I'm sure most of you guys who know Chuck know Mantis. So anyway, that's totally off topic there. Okay, Harold Vujovic says, I was looking at the 2nd edition and you talk about Dave's Periodization Bible. Could you use that as a supplemental program similar to the 27-week Boring But Big and Beyond? I don't know what you're exactly asking there, because Boring But Big is different than the Dave's Periodization Bible. So I don't know what you're really asking there, Harold. I apologize. But I would not use the Periodization Bible assistance work along with the Boring But Big, if that's what you're asking. You don't want to be combining 2 different things, okay? So, but yeah, you can, that Periodization Bible, that style of assistance work was what I did a lot of when I was training, when I was powerlifting. That was kind of the basic kind of template that we used, okay? But again, Harold, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking there. So Caleb says, I have a 4-year-old that just started soccer, and I've been wondering what I would do if he decided one day that he didn't want to play sports, considering what sports have done for all of us as far as personal development and discipline. How would you approach this, knowing that one day the lessons learned will have a profound impact on the rest of your life? Well, let me give you a little advice, Caleb. First of all, you're the parent, and sometimes the kid's got to eat his vegetables. Sometimes the kid has to clean his room. He doesn't want to clean his room. The deal we made with James is he has to learn how to swim. He has to, and so he attends swimming classes and does stuff like that. He has to learn how to read and write. We always are encouraging that. He writes books, not as good as mine, but he writes books. He's got, I don't know, probably 25 books that he's written himself and illustrated. That's part of the deal. He has to learn how to fight, do some kind of physical thing, wrestling, and now he's starting to box. And these are non-negotiable. You don't get out of this. This is part of growing up. This is just as important as going to school and everything like this. And the other thing is he has to play a sport. I don't care what sport it is, but I believe that's just non-negotiable in my world. And so, sometimes I'm not one of those dads that like is screaming and yelling and like Marv Marinovich. But there's a lot of things as a parent that you're responsible for it. I'm responsible for giving society a strong, super independent, physically fit, mentally critical thinking, mental animal. And that's my legacy. My legacy isn't squats and deadlifts and all that other stuff. My legacy is my children. And sports, he doesn't have to be very good at the sport. I don't care as long as he gives great effort, okay? So I think that needs to be, at least in my estimation, a non-negotiable, and that's just the way it gets. Just like physical training in our house is non-negotiable. You don't get out of it because you don't want to do it. That's just what you do. The key is I don't make the training or the reading or the books or anything like that overwhelming. I don't expect my kid to spend 8 hours reading Tolstoy. Just like I don't expect my kid to squat 400 pounds when he's 12 years old and load the weight. A 15 to 20 minute circuit every single day or doing something like that goes a long way. And expecting your children to do some stuff is part of being a parent, and sometimes you got to fight it a little bit. So that's what kids, you don't have to be their friends, guys. You're their parent. You got to set them on the right path. And for me, competing at sports is part of that. It may not be for you, and that's fine, but that's just part of, being part of the Wendler household. Just like my wife is doing language classes on her own. James has to learn a different language, and now I got to do it. And even though I took about 9,000 years of Spanish, if I could tell you how much Spanish I took in school and how little I know, it's unbelievable. Most of what I know in Spanish is the band Brujeria. I just learned all that stuff. Oh, Brujeria. Okay. Big Wad says, years ago you wrote an article about being a new father. I can't find it and would love to read it now that I have kids of my own. Do you know where that article went? I have no idea. Sorry, I don't know. I've written so much stuff, and I used to kind of keep a folder, on my computer and stuff, of all the stuff I've written and all that stuff. I wish I would have done that with the Q&As at Elite FTS. For those that are not terribly old, Elite FTS used to have a Q&A, and it was myself and Dave and 10 or 12 different people, power lifters, sports coaches, athletes, stuff like that. And you would write in a question in whoever you wanted you could say, hey, I want Jim to answer this, or Dave, or whoever to answer it. And the coach or athlete or lifter, or whatever you want to say, would answer it. And so this was before social media, before you could really have that kind of communication. And I think from 2001 until 2010, the amount of questions that I answered on there was something like 400 or 500 a month, at least, probably even more than that. And it'd been nice if I would have kept, copied and pasted all of them. But, when you're 25 years old, you don't really have that kind of perspective. So I don't know where that is, man. I'm sorry. So, all right. Robert Howiter says, hey, Jim, thank you for doing these. Is it possible to maintain a training max working with the same weights and improve conditioning? Or will adding conditioning always tank strength initially? It is possible to maintain a training max when you're really trying to improve conditioning, but it also depends on what the training max is. And so that's when things get a little sketchy, but you have to understand, and it also depends, like if you're adding conditioning in your training and you're just massively out of shape, just fucking horrible, then your strength is going to tank way more than if you have some kind of little bit of base of conditioning. So again, it has to do with how high the training max is and where your general physical preparedness is for conditioning. But yeah, your strength will go down, but your body will eventually adapt. So just be okay with that. Just be okay with that. And just be patient, man. And don't worry about 1 week or 2 weeks or one workout or 5 workouts. Worry about 12 months first. So there you go. Okay, Jesse Driscoll says, I've said this many times before in these AMAs, but you're a man that I follow. Well, thank you, Jesse, and I look up to Ted Kennedy. Woo, Ted Kennedy. Jim Wendler and Joe Rogan. Who do you look up to for advice? Boy, mostly my dad and my mom, but mostly my dad, if I'm going to be honest. I still call my dad up. He is 70 some odd years old, and he's I still call him and like, Dad, I got to talk to you about this and that. And sometimes they're tough conversations that I need to have. Sometimes it's just, talking about football or something easy, so to speak. So, but yeah, I would probably say that. I don't know if there's really a public figure I look up to. And that's not saying that there's not great people to look up to at all. I just, I don't know, I kind of want to follow my own path. And that doesn't mean like I don't ever watch Joe Rogan or something, but a lot of these people, they don't set my moral compass. My dad my mom set the moral compass for me. And my wife, I guess that's who I go for advice to. So there you go. When I was growing up, my old man was a teacher. My old man was my oldest son. Comment down here, you fucking turd. All right, so my dad was a teacher when I was growing up. Both my parents were teachers, and my dad always saw the pitfalls of young kids. You know, he was in high school, just kind of crap out, so to speak. And one of the things my dad really stressed with me was never follow the crowd, always do the right thing, even if no one else is doing it. The same stuff I'm sure many of you have heard a million times. The problem is I have kind of a all or nothing personality. So I kind of took that, ran it a little too far. So I never drank or did anything like that in high school. I would go to parties and I loved it. My only real weakness was girls. But never let any of that stuff ever get in the way of my goals, ever. So I took great pride in doing a lot of the stuff that no one else wanted to do. And I think that was one of the most important lessons. And so I never felt peer pressure, really. I only felt pressure to do the right thing. And that's mainly my mom and my dad. So, all right, Mason, I see you, buddy. I know you're in class right now, so get to class. All right. Okay, Jorge Silva says, oh, Jorge's like, sorry for the third question. With training maxes of 150, 205, 245, and 365 on the 4 list, which template would you suggest? Thanks for the answers. Jorge, I'm going to give you a massive piece of advice. Keep the training max, as long as those training maxes are solid, do whatever template makes you feel super hungry in the gym. All right, because you don't have to do it forever. Do it for 6 weeks and then change. Or if you really like it and it's working awesome, let it go for another, 2 or 3 cycles or something like that. So I can't suggest you a template because I don't know what you want to do. I could, I might want to really do something, or I might want my kids, James, to do something, or I want my athletes to do something. But what's most important, Jorge, is what training template or training style, I don't care what it is. I'm not going to tell you what to do because I don't know. I want you to go into that weight room so fucking hungry and ready to train that it doesn't matter if it's the dumbest thing you've ever done. You will have success because 1, you believe in it. 2, you are consistent. 3, you're giving great effort. And 4, you have the highest expectations for what you're doing. All right. So Jorge, doesn't matter what your template you choose, do something you believe in, something that you know you will be consistent with, and you will reap the benefits. Caleb Solers. Caleb Solers is asking a question. Caleb was a running back at London. He's done some powerlifting meets. He's graduated, obviously. He was a running back who weighed about 210 pounds, right, Caleb? About 5'9". So his legs were about this big. And Caleb Solers was the greatest example. Caleb probably doesn't know this, but I did a training experiment with him. Caleb he played football and played basketball. And he did that, I believe, all 4 years. And so what I did with Caleb's training maxes is Caleb was super strong. And I always made sure his training maxes were very low so that whenever Caleb walked into the weight room, he could look at his sheet. And Caleb was the kind of kid that if you put 900 pounds in there, he'd fucking put 900 pounds in the bar and just lift it. But I made sure his training maxes were always incredibly low. Caleb got so strong doing that because he was always consistent. For 4 years, he did that. And he always did what I asked him to do. So my greatest advice for longevity in the sport or just training in general is 1, have some kind of balance in your training. And that means, for example, if you are a power lifter, make sure you add in some kind of conditioning and make sure you always maintain some mobility and flexibility. Number 2, understand that there's going to be massive ebbs and flows in your training. So you're not going to be increasing your strength at all 4 lifts or all 3 lifts all the time. It doesn't work like that. All right. So it's okay to be frustrated, but it's not the end of the road. Number 3 is maintain the strongest upper abs and low back that you can. And that means direct training for your abs and low back. And that means back raises. I'm a huge fan of back raises. Get your back super strong, get your abs super strong too. And number 3, is that number 3? Number 3 is when you get injured, because Caleb got injured recently, always find a way to work around it and always preload your rehab. So don't try and rush your rehab to get under the bar or put a bar in your hand. So make sure that's all worked out. So, and the other thing you have to understand that in any competitive sport, whether it's football, powerlifting, basketball, injuries are part of the game. And if you want to operate at a high level, like a fucking high level, there's going to be injuries. And the sooner you get over that, the better you're going to be. I always tell the football team, I don't know if Caleb, you remember this, but I always say, football is a 100% injury sport. You will be injured in football. As soon as you understand that, you'll be okay with it. And I always tell them it's an honor to be hurt on the field helping your brothers. Okay. And again, I always say, do we get hurt in the weight room? And the kids say, no. I say, well, where do we get hurt? On the field. Like what? Like men. So there you go. All right, we'll get a couple more. It is past 11, so here we go. Raymond Gerardo says, good morning. I currently run 5-3-1 as written. I use running as my preferred form of cardio. Do you recommend deloading running volume between cycles? Thanks for the advice over the years. Generally speaking, Raymond, I would say yes. So when you deload your lifting, I would recommend deloading your conditioning too, so that it all kind of comes down and you feel okay for the next round of training, so to speak. When I was in Arizona, when we deloaded our lifts, we would increase our running volume. And Dan Worth, who was the strength coach at the time, he changed all that around and he realized that kids were feeling a little bit better because when we had a deload week, we deloaded everything. We felt much better. All right. Ben McEwen says, you're the man, Jim. Thank you. I have no training questions, but I know you are into metal. Which niche bands that aren't well known would you recommend? I don't know what you mean by niche bands. So the 2 ones that come to mind who I think have amazing guitar tones is Cattle Press. I think Cattle Press, they have a bunch of 7-inches out, but I know Hydra had their LP out called, I think it's Hordes to Abolish the Divine. I think that album is untouchable. And number 2 is the band Dove. Now this is going to get confusing. Dove is the name of the band where Henry Wilson, who is also the drummer of Floor, plays guitar and sings in Dove. And his guitar tones and that music is amazing. I love that stuff. So Dove is definitely way more accessible than Cattle Press. But those are 2 bands I just thought of the top of my head that I love. And I think both those guitar tones are so unique. Huge fan of both those bands. All right, here we go. Possibly the last question here. Harry Callahan, Dirty Harry, says, doing all main barbell work, squat, deadlift, bench press, and all accessories with body weight, such as push-ups, dips, chin-ups, body weight squats, without additional load or dumbbells, correct? I'm not sure what you're asking there, but yes, you can do that if you want. But again, I'm not sure what you're asking. So yes, you can do all your main barbell work, and then all your assistance work could be body weight. Yes, you don't have to do it all the time. Again, you might run that for 3 weeks, 6 weeks, or whatever time period. But again, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking there. So, all right, last question here. Hey, Jim, any tips on bringing up upper back while running 5-through-1 boring but big? Yes, do a ton of rows, dumbbell, single arm dumbbell rows, and you can also do some face pulls. But face pulls aren't. I mean, they work the upper back. But if you want a big, strong upper back, you got to learn how to row, and you got to learn how to bring up your your single arm dumbbell row. Huge. Plus, it's easy on the back, which is super important for when you run boring but big. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm reading the questions here, guys. Ben McEwen, he asked about the niche. Yeah, about the niche bands. Yeah, I think Cattle Press is very unique. I don't really know what style of music they play. And it's a 3-man band. And I've seen videos of them playing live before, and they pull off that racket, man. Huge fan. So if I remember correctly, I think the guitarist had like a hot pink guitar, which just looked very weird playing that style of music. So, all right, we are ready to go. All right. Did everyone have a good time? I did. I had an awesome time. I want to thank everyone for asking the questions. Actually, it's that side right there. All right. So thank you, everyone, for asking the questions. I really appreciate everyone asking, because that's what keeps this flowing. I love being able to give back. As I've gotten older, I try to do a better job of doing a lot of this stuff. So thank you. As always, guys, JimWendler.com. We have an awesome forum. We are building up our social media stuff. You'll see some new shorts with some of these videos cut. We hired kind of a social media person to do some of that stuff. I think it's going to be on TikTok too. I don't know. I have no idea. I've never looked at TikTok in my life. And so, but we're going to try and do that to try and reach out to more people. So anyway, thank you everyone for showing up. As again, we should, if you've got something dumb planned, conditioning wise, something stupid, have an awesome time this weekend. I don't know what I got going on this weekend. I am doing doing stairs Saturday, as long as the weather is good. Weight vest stairs, and I'm going to be miserable, and I cannot wait. I'm super excited to feel like crap, just like I do right now. Oh my God, dude, the prowler kicked my ass yesterday. I'll be honest, man. My legs were so gummy afterwards. I sat on my front porch, the prowler just out in the street, just miserable. And so anyway, guys, thank you for everything. Have a great weekend. I'll see you.